We're all looking for happiness, right? But what if I told you the real secret isn't about what we're chasing, but how we're chasing it? Today we're going to dig into this really cool ancient Buddhist idea that basically splits this whole quest into two totally different paths. One path depends on everything out there in the world, and the other, well, that one comes completely from inside.
So let's get real for a second. What actually makes us happy? Is it the new car, the promotion at work, getting a ton of likes on social media? We ask ourselves this stuff all the time. And you know what's wild? It turns out this ancient wisdom has a super simple way of looking at it that can really help us figure it out.
All right, so these two paths are what we're talking about today. Two kinds of happiness. It really boils down to a choice between something that's just a fleeting pleasure and something that's a much deeper, lasting peace. In the Pali language, the language of the early Buddhist texts, these paths have names: Āmisa and Nirāmisa.
Okay, so at its heart, the difference is actually super simple. Āmisa happiness, that's the worldly, material kind. It depends on getting something from the outside world. But Nirāmisa happiness, that's spiritual. It's something you find completely inside yourself, totally independent of what's going on out there. Really, it's a choice between being dependent and being free.
So let's start with the first one, Āmisa. This is the path most of us are, let's be honest, pretty familiar with. And the reason it has this name is, well, it's kind of startling. It's all about understanding this idea of worldly bait.
So check this out. The word Āmisa literally translates to connected with raw flesh. Just let that sink in for a second. It means bait. It's talking about all those worldly things, material stuff, sensory pleasures, getting praise, all the stuff that looks so good and pulls us in, but has this hidden potential to totally trap us. And the scriptures have this perfect, really powerful metaphor to explain it. Picture this: a fisherman casts a hook with some bait on it into a deep pool of water. You see that tempting little morsel on the hook? Yep, that's Āmisa.
So along comes a fish, and it's super hungry. It sees that bait and boom, swallows it whole. All it's thinking about is that immediate satisfaction, right? That tasty little snack. It has no idea there's a sharp hook hidden inside.
And just like that, in that one instant, the fish has, and this is a direct quote from the text, met with disaster. It's fallen into misfortune. Why? Because by swallowing that bait, it's caught. Its freedom is totally gone. It's completely at the mercy of the fisherman. And that right there is the hidden danger of a life spent just chasing Āmisa. Okay, so what does this bait actually look like in our day-to-day lives? The texts get really specific here. It's that urge to just collect and hoard possessions. It's that constant hunger for praise and a good reputation. It's the nonstop search for sensory pleasures, good food, good music, pretty things to look at. It can even be something as small as telling a little white lie to get some tiny advantage. These are the hooks that we bite, a lot of the time without even thinking about it.
So, if that's the trap, what's the way out? What's the alternative to constantly getting caught on the hook? Well, that brings us to our second path: finding happiness beyond the material world. It's a happiness that's not about getting stuff, but about letting go. This is the peace of Nirāmisa.
So if Āmisa means with bait, then Nirāmisa is, you guessed it, the exact opposite. It literally means without raw flesh or without bait. It's pointing to a kind of happiness that is totally free from that hook of worldly stuff. It's a spiritual happiness that doesn't depend on what our senses can see, taste, or touch. And this right here really nails the core difference. On one hand, you have Samma Sukham, or worldly happiness. This is the pleasure that depends entirely on our senses being stimulated by pleasant things. But then you have Nirāmisam Sukham, unworldly happiness. And this comes from a completely different place. It grows out of inner peace, a sense of calm, maybe even meditation. It's a fundamental shift, moving the source of our joy from the outside world to our inner world.
Now, the key thing to get here is that this unworldly joy isn't something that just happens to you. It's not passive. The texts say it comes from diligent effort. This is a happiness you actually have to work for. You have to cultivate it by training your mind and actively letting go of things, not by just gaining more and more stuff.
Okay, so to make this whole idea a lot less abstract, the Buddha told this really simple but incredibly profound story. It perfectly captures this choice we've been talking about, this choice between Āmisa and Nirāmisa. It's a story about what it really means to be an heir.
He said to his followers, "Be my heirs of the teaching, the Dhamma, not heirs of material things, the Āmisa." That really frames the whole choice perfectly, doesn't it? Are you going to inherit the wisdom, or are you just going to settle for inheriting the stuff?
So the story goes like this. You've got two monks, they're super hungry, totally wiped out after a long day. The Buddha has just finished eating, and there's some leftover food. And this food, right here, is a perfect example of Āmisa. It's a material thing that can take care of a real, physical need.
Now, the first monk, he thinks about what the Buddha said. He thinks, wait a minute. He told us to be heirs of the teaching, not material things. This food is Āmisa. And so he makes a choice. He decides not to eat, to actually endure the hunger, because he's prioritizing the teaching over his own immediate comfort.
Then there's the second monk. He's thinking, man, I'm hungry and weak. I should probably eat this so I can get rid of this hunger and have some energy for the rest of the day. So he eats the food, and he satisfies that immediate material need. And honestly, that's the most natural, totally understandable reaction in the world. But here's the twist in the story. The Buddha actually says the first monk, the one who said no to the food, is the one who's more praiseworthy. And you might be asking, why? Well, it's because his choice, even though it was way harder in the moment, leads to these incredible long-term benefits: real contentment, lasting energy, and just being easy to support. His choice is the perfect example of the path of Nirāmisa. He chose wisdom over temporary comfort.
So, what does this all mean for us, right now? This whole story really brings the question right back to our own lives. It's about taking a moment to reflect on the two paths and where our own happiness really comes from. You know, if there's one big takeaway from all of this, it's this simple idea right here. Āmisa is the happiness you try to get from things, but Nirāmisa, that's the happiness that comes from being free from things. It's the difference between being in a cage, even if it's a golden one, and having the wide open sky.
So the final question is really for you to think about. Look, we all get caught on the hook of Āmisa sometimes. That's just part of being human. But it's so worth asking yourself, in your own life, when you step away from all the noise and the constant wanting, where do you find your moments of Nirāmisa? Where do you find that unworldly happiness?